as a lot of you guys may know, I know one thing the football Michigan did last year, and I'm sure they're doing this year as well, is that in preparation for Ohio State, every week they had like a Ohio State drill that they would do. In which they would dedicate a certain amount of time purely to Ohio State, no matter who their opponent is, because that's the must of the season. We have to beat Ohio State. So no matter what we're doing this upcoming week, we're going to spend at least some time seeing what that team in Columbus is doing. And I think we should do the same because I think, going to the season, my perception of both teams were that we were clearly 1 and 2 in terms of the best two teams in the conference. And once again, we're on a collision course to decide who's going to get to the Big Ten title game this year, and therefore probably win the Big Ten because I don't think anybody in the West, especially seeing Iowa this past Saturday, is anywhere close to be able to stop us once we get to the Big Ten title game. So we're going to dedicate a certain amount of time every week into what we see from Ohio State and how is that relevant to Michigan. So Ohio State played Notre Dame this past weekend, and of course, Michigan took care of their business versus Colorado State, and we're going to recap that as well. But after the Michigan Colorado State game, Michigan took care of their business. I tuned into the Ohio State Notre Dame game because, for one, Ohio State is a direct rival. We have to beat them. Like as I said, we're on a collision course. But also, you never know. Notre Dame is probably going to be someone we're competing for a playoff spot either way. Maybe Ohio State's the only loss that Michigan has this year, right? And we're trying to battle with Notre Dame for that fourth spot. So we have to see how they look and see if they're going to be one of those teams that's going to give us a run for our money there. Either way, it was relevant. So I watched the game Saturday, like a lot of you probably did, and I think the positive note I took for Michigan is that I was not 100% convinced that Ohio State fixed their rush defense. Now they did a decent job. They only allowed 10 points for Notre Dame, but I didn't get the feeling that, especially early on, that they could stop Notre Dame physicality up front. I felt like when Notre Dame wanted to run the football, and Ohio State was playing out their base defense, they could. Now, the adjustment that Ohio State made was that they started to bring safeties into the box, both safeties into the box. And unfortunately, Notre Dame was able to counter with their weapons on the outside, besides their tight end number 87. I can't remember the guy's name. And that allowed them to hold Notre Dame to 10 points. But for Michigan, what I think is really a positive for Michigan is that I believe we are a lot more dynamic and versatile offensively. And I didn't come away from that game with the perception that, Ohio State can stop us this year compared to what they did last year. I still believe that as of now, when we line up on the football field, that Michigan should dominate the line of scrimmage. Our offensive line should beat their defensive line. We should be able to run the football at will. And if they do decide to load the box as an adjustment with us, we do have the weapons on the outside with Rodney Bell, Cornelius Johnson, Eric All, guys like that to be able to, and I believe JJ or Cade will be able to take advantage and do a better job than Notre Dame did. So I felt pretty good. We all know what Ohio State's offense can be. They lost Smith and Jigma early on, so of course that's going to be a factor. I think he'll be back, and we should see him later this year. And we know they're going to be lethal, but I still think the formula that Michigan had last year versus Ohio State, which was dominate the line of scrimmage, run a football at will, control the time of possession, and limit Ohio State explosive plays on offense, is still a recipe that they can explore this year. So I still feel pretty good about Michigan's chances going to Columbus. I was not displeased.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with offense in general of where college football is today, a lot of it is high flying and the elite passing offenses. And sometimes what gets lost is the O-line play. And I would make the argument that no matter what type of offense you run, you need good to great offensive line play. And I think that Michigan, I think Michigan has that, and it's something that they will continue to build on. To me, overall, Ohio State looked improved, but I still think that Michigan would have the edge when it comes to the line of scrimmage on both sides. CJ Stroud looked a little bit off in and maybe it was kind of first game jitters of being back, or maybe it's Heisman Trophy talk and pressure. Just a lot of different things could factor into it. Now, obviously, they're not playing this week or anything like that. There's a lot of time for him, that offense, that defense, that entire team to improve before they square off against Michigan, and same thing for Michigan as well. But I think I would probably number one agree with what you're saying, but I think one part of the Ohio State strategy, it was them continuously focusing on running the football. And if you look at Ohio State's losses in the Ryan Day era, a lot of it has been him being a little bit pass happy as far as his play calling and not sticking to the run game, because you could make an argument he's had really good running backs ever since he's been the head coach there. And a lot of times you just see just the pass happy him, I think it's understandable because it's quicker to score that way, and you've had pretty good quarterbacks. But I think him showing that growth as a head coach of understanding the flow of the game, understanding your advantage and where you can be better, and also too your quarterback not being on his game, right? That wasn't a CJ Stroud against Michigan State where he couldn't miss, or the Rose Bowl game where he was just absolutely dialed in.
There's part that you have to give credit to Notre Dame. I thought that Marcus Freeman came into the game with a very sound strategy. And I thought Kirk Herbstreit made a really good point. I think it's a strategy that a lot of teams are going to implement versus Ohio State this year. Look, there's no way getting around it. They're going to have one of the most explosive offenses in the country, if not the most explosive offense. They just have way too much talent at every position. At a receiver, running back, and their quarterback is going to be drafted in the top 3 in 2023 NFL draft. Okay, you may even win a Heisman. So they're going to score their points. But to limit the amount of points they do score is that you're going to probably play 2 safeties back and try to keep everything in front of you. And and make sure, look, CJ is going to find his guys if he's patient enough. But when he does find somebody, make sure you run up and you tackle soundly. And if they are going to score, that you make them use as much time as possible. And maybe at times you can catch CJ being a little bit greedy, and he tries to force 1 or 2, and maybe you can get him to make a turnover. And I think that's just going to be the strategy in most weeks, unless you have a really good pass rush, like Michigan had last year. I'm not sure they're going to necessarily have that this year. We will see. Definitely some positive signs for Colorado State and some guys that look like they're going to be able to make an impact there. But assuming that our pass rush is not quite as effective this year, then yeah, we're going to probably have to do the same thing in terms of playing 2 safeties back. And I still feel pretty good about Michigan's chances. And once again, guys, the point of this segment, if you're not understanding why we're talking about Ohio State, is because we know that Michigan is really good. We know that we are 1 or 2 with Ohio State in terms of the best teams in this conference. So we are on this collision course. So it is imperative for us to focus on what they're doing. We have to acknowledge their existence. They're coming. So are we. And they know we're coming too. So that's why we're once again diving into this, just to see what that team down in Columbus is doing. And they look good. For you Ohio State fans that are here every week, we appreciate you. I'm not saying you guys didn't look good. I'm not saying that you're going to only score 21 points every week. That's a little bit of an anomaly. However, I will say that there is a formula defensively to try to limit your explosive scoring. You guys are going to have to figure out a way, and maybe it's probably running the football more. I mean, I felt like Travion Henderson didn't even play that much. That's what it seemed like. And Williams got the bulk of the carries. I have to go back and look at the box score to see the carry breakdown. But that's another guy that came out of nowhere for them. That he's like, man, he runs angry. That's a power running back. Travion Henderson is more of a home run hitter. Yeah, that's going to be a problem for Michigan and other teams this year. If Ohio State has found their own 1-2 combo that they can hit you over the head with. Because if Ryan Day has learned anything from last year, it's that sometimes when the pass game is not there, because teams don't want you to beat them that way, then you do have to run the football and feed your guys in the backfield. And if that's the case, you're going to do exactly what Notre Dame did at a certain point in the game. They got burnt as soon as they did it. It was a point in time, I think it was 14-10, or maybe it was 10-7. And Ohio State's driving, and eventually they brought the house. They brought safeties on the blitz. And as soon as they did that, CJ found Johnson for a touchdown. So, you know, and he made them pay. So, yeah, that's a problem. So if Ryan Day has learned his lesson, and he's going to be a lot more balanced this year, pretty much taking what the defense gives him. And we now know that, well, we knew that Trayvon Henderson was legit, but now they have another really good back in Williams. That's a problem for us. So, you know, we'll see. But I feel really good about Michigan's chances still going down in C-Bus. I still believe this team has what it takes. Even though I greatly respect what Ohio State is, and I think they are dangerous everywhere, I still think Michigan, there's a formula for Michigan to win that game.